are Team ACES, and the position that we are going to be advocating for today is that Mexico should be a part of the global supply chain. So firstly, to run down what we're going to go over today, first thing is I'm just going to give you some background on the history of the involvement of Mexico in the global supply chain. And then we're going to go on to talk about GDP growth, the employment benefits that come from being a part of the global environment, the labor productivity, the benefits of maquiladoras, and we're going to talk about what those are exactly more later on, and then provide you with our conclusion. So a little bit of the history is that in 1982 was really when Mexico became involved or started easing their restrictions on involvement. And that's when they used restrictions on the maquiladoras. And the maquiladoras are really the export factory production plants. So that's really where the main source of business for imports and exports kind of comes into the Mexican environment. And in 1985, they joined GATT, which was, I guess, a further just reiteration that they were committed to becoming more involved, and that was really the agreement. And then 1994 was the most prominent example of their new involvement in the global supply chain when they became more integrated into the North American free trade. Okay, here we wanted to show this graph. This is imports plus exports, so it's not net exports, but it shows that there's, from 1984, after they eased restrictions, going up until 94, there was an increase in the level of trade involvement, whether it's imports plus exports. And then furthermore, the slope increases even more intensely after 1994, which shows that they're, again, growing more rapidly in their involvement. And another strong indicator that we thought should be important to point out is the FDI growth. Following 1994 and starting in 1995, we see sharp an incline of over 150% of FDI growth. Now that does slope off after 2001, but we think there are certain reasons for that, which we can get more into later. And overall, we think that the positive effects that come about from increased FDI is that there's technological spillovers, and we think that technology is a necessary aspect of any economic growth, so that's very important, as well as the fact that it contributes to international trade, and it promotes a better business environment, and also it assists in more human capital formation. So I'm going to hand it over to Binbin now, and she's going to talk to you about GDP.
Thank you, Evan. So now from this graph here, we can see that Mexico has been experiencing a steadily growth ever since it signed NAFTA in 1994. So its GDP went up from less than $450 billion in 1995 to approximately $700 billion in 2010. And a similar pattern can also be seen in this GDP per capita. Over the years 1995 to 2010, its GDP per capita has increased approximately $1,500. Since the GDP per capita is an important indicator of a country's living standards, I believe it is safe for us to say that Mexico has benefited from globalization. Naturally, all this economic growth has led to more job opportunities in Mexico, and my teammate Doni will talk more about that aspect.
Okay, thanks Bingbing for explanation of GDP growth, and I'm continue to introduce the beneficial employment effects on Mexico as being part of the global supply chain. And the effects can be seen in three aspects. In manufacturing, there's a net gain of 500,000 to 600,000 jobs since Mexico joined NAFTA and opened up to the world trade. And in service sector, the employment rate has increased from 50% to 60% from 1995 to 2008. And of course, there are many new opportunities provided by EPZs, which are export processing roles. And we can clearly see from the graphs and table here, the gross output and employment rate has increased dramatically since Mexico joined NAFTA and opened up to the world trade. And there are now 207 million people worldwide are working in 850 EPZs around the world, and of which there are 107 EPZs in Mexico. And many governments in different countries are also considering establishing their own EPZs to create more job opportunities for local people. And then let's take a look at the virtuous circle created by global supply chain. According to the economic model, because of the increase of FDI and increase of trade growth, the aggregate supply and aggregate demand of the whole country increased. and that leads to higher productivity and higher economic growth, and higher economic growth lead to higher employment rates. And that is the direct effects of being part of the global supply chain. And of course, there's indirect effects because there are many intermediate goods and services provided by the TNCs, which is transnational corporations, or you can also call it multinational corporations. And that's increased many job opportunities for local people. And now I will hand over to my teammate to introduce about labor productivity.
Thank you. We have just saw that the most important increase in the Mexican economy have been dramatically in the manufacturing sector. In the manufacturing sector, the most important industrial activity is assembly, production, or maquiladora. Maquiladora represents nowadays the 20% of export of Mexico and 50% of the total industrial production. And the key point is maquiladora is a production highly intensive in labor. And we can see in this graph, the productivity of labor has increased after 1994, the year was NAFTA agreement was signed. And the level of productivity level in 2000 are evidently higher than the labor productivity level in the second part of the 90s. So this is a good effect, again, of the integration of Mexico in the supply chains. So Kendi is going to give you some details about this maquiladora industry.
Oh, hi. Now I'm going to tell a fantastic Spanish word, maquiladora. It is kind of a key feature of the US and Mexico trade. And maquiladora imports on a duty-free basis the raw material and then processed or assembling by Mexican labor and to re-export the products primarily to the United States. And now we can see the maquiladora serves as a good example as the Mexico being a part of global supply chain. And now we'll dig into this phenomenon and see how maquiladora benefit Mexico. And maquiladora has been instrumental in the country's export conversion, as we can see in this figure. From 1983 to 2002, the real value added in the maquiladora grew at an annual average rate of 11%. And in 2002, these export assembling plants accounted for 45% of the manufacturing products and 28% of the manufacturing employment. And also, since 1980s, some firms moved from low-skill assembling work to a more advanced manufacturing operations. Also, during the 1990s, the maquiladora proved to be one of the most dynamic components of Mexican's manufacturing. Maquiladora production has increased by 197% from the 1993 to 2000, while the overall production rates increased 58%. And during that same period, maquiladora employment tripled, adding more than 900,000 jobs in Mexican whole industry. Next, the maquiladora also drive U.S. and Mexico border integration and the trade. The maquiladora export increased about 340% between 1993 to 2001, and in large part because the maquiladora-related export increased by 400%. And by 2001, maquiladora accounted for 41% of the total Mexican trade with the other countries. So here we could found maquiladora has benefited the trade of the border state of Mexico, and we're confident that these trends will benefit the whole country in the long run. So in conclusion, our team believes that Mexico does benefit from being a part of global supply chain because it increases economic growth, creates job opportunities, increases the labor productivity, and will maximize the Mexico's country's comparative advantage. Thank you very much.